Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another Flex Your Influence Spotlight. And just to refresh your memory, I decided to launch the Flex Your Influence Spotlight so that way I could use my own channels, Socialize LA's channels, to bring spotlight to business owners that I just have either connected with in one way or another, and they've said something that just I was like, okay, I like with Michele, who you'll meet in just a minute. I met Michele through a little organization you might have heard me talk about before, the National Association of Women Business Owners, NABO. Michele, I say that because I mention NABO on probably every video. But I meet amazing women there. And so, yes, so I'm really happy to have you here. But that's why Flex Your Influence Spotlight exists, and just having a lot of fun with it. And so, Michele, thank you for being here. And why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do in your company?
Cool. Hi, everybody. My name is Michele Berdinis. I am the founder and president of Beeline Legal. I am a trademark attorney, and Beeline is I left my firm after my kids graduated college, and I stopped hemorrhaging tuition, and I went out on my own. And Beeline was my way of solving the problem of how much people hate to work with lawyers.
Don't dance around that anymore. That's hilarious. But that was you knew that was an issue.
I knew that was an issue. I absolutely do. And it should be. I mean,
yeah,
lawyers, many lawyers are not really someone you want to hang out with. So yeah.
And not just to say that about lawyers, I would probably say maybe in your industry, it's probably even bigger because, it is such, it's legal, it's law. I would say a lot of industries as well have, I feel like sometimes I have to dance around that when someone's like, oh, well, the last marketing company we worked with XYZ.
Yeah.
And so, it is a very big part of being in business is like, how are you different? And then how are you addressing the problems, not just for your client, but like the industry problems.
Right. Yeah. And that's exactly right. And I mean, the industry has some problems, lawyers, because of the way that they've designed their fee structures, you never know how much something's going to cost until you're in it. And I wanted to fix that problem. And I also thought just in general, lawyers charge too much. So I wanted to figure out a way to fix that problem, while still making a good living. So that's what I did.
I love that. I really, really love that. You got to make your living, but at the same time,
Yeah.
I love that. Well, I do have some questions for you. And
okay.
Michele and I both live in New York, and one of these days we will see each other in person. One of these days. Yeah. But a quick plug for where Michele and I met. We met on a weekly virtual event through NABO called Empower Hour, and it's designed for women business owners to have a space to come together, and we have 2 mastermind questions that we break out into small groups with. And so every week, anyone who joins in gets to like just stop and think about their business for this hour. And not only are we thinking about our business, but also we're engaging and networking and building relationships. And so a lot of beautiful things are coming out of it. And I've seen collaborate. This is a collaboration.
Yeah. No, it's a really great group of women.
Yeah. Didn't you do a webinar with someone recently?
Yeah, with Andrea. Yeah.
With Andrea. Yeah. Amazing. So I love that. It's just, there's so much strength when we come together. So I love to see that happen. But I have a question for you, a few of them. And we're talking to people who may already be in business, may want to start their business. But I would like to know that when you started, what caught you by surprise when you first launched your company?
So I would say I had been with a firm for 20 years, and my practice with that firm was representing startups. So I represented startups from the day they were formed through everything that they did, contracts, private placements of securities, you name it. And then I did their M&A. So I thought I knew everything there was to know about doing a startup. Right. And I was shocked to discover that actually doing it is very different than looking in from the outside. Yeah, I didn't really understand how the combination of abject terror and exquisite joy, and how
I love that,
and how intense both of those things are, how much fun it is and how scary it is, both. And you don't get that from watching somebody else do it. Even if you're fairly intimately involved, you don't get it that way. You only get it when you do it yourself.
Wow, Michele, that I think I need to go back and listen to this and then quote you on that, because I've never, ever, ever in all my years working with business owners have ever heard anyone use the word terror. And but you are absolutely right. And right when you said that, a few like things flashed behind me of times when I was terrified.
Right. Exactly. You just go, oh my God, now what?
So yeah, I mean, that's great. And so yes, that was probably the most shocking.
Yeah.
I think for me, when I first started, I remember I was working at 3 Park Avenue. That was my first time living in New York. And I would see consultants come in and out of the company I worked for. And I felt like it was a small business owned by a family, but very successful. And I would see the family just like love the consultants, and anything the consultant said, we do. So I thought, and then I, as an employee there, a manager, I couldn't run with ideas. They always were just like, no, that's not a good. This was like right before, like this was in 2009. So social media was very, very small, very just started. They're like, no, we don't need to play in that space, basically. And so I thought to myself, guess what? I'm going to start my own company and I'm going to be a consultant and everyone's going to listen to me. I swear to you, that's exactly what I thought. And then I'm like, oh, it's a little bit different than that.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to talk people out of what they're passionate about, right? And when small business owners in particular, they're passionate about what they do, and it's really hard.
Yeah. And they're terrified.
Yeah. And they're terrified.
Just remember that anytime you're looking at a business owner, you know they are terrified. That's so bad.
Right. No, I really think if you're not feeling equal amounts terror and joy, not like at every moment,
right,
but over time, you're not doing it right.
That's right. I agree. And actually, just going back to what you said about when you knew that, like even the lawyer fee structure, you wanted to make some adjustments for that on your, in your company. And I'm sure your clients have appreciated that. I do the same thing because I just met with a new client that we're going to start working with, and they were terrified of the commitment. They said the last company that they marketing agency that they got involved with made them sign for a year.
Wow.
And I just thought to myself, why would I want to sign someone for a year? How do I even know that we're going to connect?
Yeah,
this is very personal.
Yeah. And it's hard. It's really hard. And the lawyer thing, I mean, when you ask a lawyer to do something, they just sort of disappear and do it. And then they come back and say, well, it took me this many hours.
Oh, yeah. So you really have to trust the people that.
Yeah. And a lot of people have already, by the time they come to me, a lot of people have already been burned by a lawyer. right? So it's not even a hypothetical.
Yep.
Or, you know, they've had a lawyer who never got back to them, didn't return phone calls, didn't
Yeah.
reply to emails. A lot of people have really bad experiences, and it's hard to trust somebody when you've had bad experiences with somebody else in that same field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very, very, very true. And so just so you know, in our agency, we do have month-to-month contracts. Now we do have annual contracts because they should exist. And if someone wants to sign an annual contract, we always do like a percentage off. But really our base rates are always that month to month because that's something in my industry that people get scared about. And
Yeah.
I always say, I mean, I have clients, I'm sure you do too, that have been with you for so long. And it's like, yeah, they're on a month to month, but if you're doing your job right,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
you have the annual contract, really.
Yeah. But with you, I mean, that must be hard because a lot of times, especially with social media, you're not going to see anything for a while.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you know, it's not like after the first month, it's, you know, one and
Yeah.
done.
And
I
that's
mean,
about
yeah.
setting up expectations,
Right. Yeah.
you know, on that front side is
Yeah.
like
Because it does. It takes a while to build the following. It takes a while to
get
find
the
the niche.
engine
It takes a
going.
while. Right. It takes a
Yeah.
while. Yeah. To like
Yeah.
see what works and what doesn't
Yeah.
work in that particular instance.
That's right. And Michelle, honestly, like social media is a huge part of what we do, but I'm like, depending on who the person is, as I'm sure you do with your clients, it's like they may need to really focus on like a LinkedIn newsletter campaign.
Right. Yeah.
And then that, and so we'll find like that multi, you know, yeah. But anyway, thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that. I think that's hilarious and amazing about what surprised you the most. Okay, so let's go to the joy part of that.
Okay.
And I want to know, what are you most excited about in your business right now?
Just watching that line just keep going like that month after month, quarter after quarter. I actually get a little bit giddy. I mean, I've always worked for somebody else, and this is the first time I've gone out on my own. I joined a firm. They already had clients. I didn't really have to bring in my own clients, at least at the beginning. So I never really did that myself. And just knowing that I started from scratch. I started really, because I couldn't really bring my clients with me because I moved from Colorado to New York City.
Oh.
Oh yeah, I wasn't here, and so there was some legacy stuff, but very, very little. And so I was really starting from scratch at age 55. Right.
Wow.
So it's not like, oh, that's okay. If I screw up, I'll get another chance. I mean, this is pretty much it. And it was, and just like, I'm so proud of myself.
I'm proud of you too.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, I didn't know if I could do this because I had never tried. And now I do.
You're shocking yourself.
I know.
It's like
cool.
you knew somewhere in you knew you could do it. But you were just like, it was such a giant, I mean, it was just such a giant.
I think if I had had any idea how hard it was, I don't think I would have had the guts to start.
Wow.
But once I started, it's like, well, okay, in for a penny, and right. And I mean, even so the way my business is, the way that I can offer lower fees is by having almost all of it be automated, right? So the only part I do is the fun and interesting parts of my job. I don't do any of the boring bits of my job. The website takes care of all the boring bits. And by doing that, I don't have to charge you a quarter hour of my time to write the same stupid email that I've written 600 times, right? It just,
nice.
That email just goes out to you when I upload something to your portal.
Okay. I need to stop you really quickly because what you just said, you're using your expertise not to pad your bottom line, and just you're using your expertise to be a resource to small businesses so they don't have to, so you're saving them.
Right. But but this gets back to what you asked, right? So then So I had this idea in my head for like 10 years before I ever did it, because I realized I couldn't really do it from within a law firm. I had to leave the firm in order to do that. I had 2 kids in college. There was no freaking way I was just going to like leave a partnership in a law firm in that moment.
Yeah.
So I finally did. And then I said, okay, I'm going to do this. And I sat down to start writing the documentation for the website. And that was in mid-December. And I thought it was going to take me a couple of weeks. And it took me until March.
Wow.
And there were 800 pages of documentation.
Oh, wow.
And so, I mean, I had created kind of like a whole tree of like the structure of the website.
Yeah.
And I did it in Word, which is really stupid.
Do it. You start where you are.
I thought it was going to be tiny. Like I didn't realize the decision tree that was in my head. You know, you only ever go down one path at a time, so you don't really realize how big it is. And there was one point, my son's an engineer, and he came to visit me, and he saw this thing sitting on my desk, this printout of this thing. And he said, you know, there are tools to do that. And I said, I didn't realize it was going to get so big. And then I was already so deep into it, it seemed silly to go back. But it was, again, if I had realized that it was going to take me more than 3 months to just write the documentation for the website, I would have just said, oh, screw this. I'm not doing this. I mean, I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's really wild.
Yeah. And then like I sent it off. Another former client actually did the coding for the site. And I sent it off to them. And they finally got started working on it. And about a month into it was 1,000 man hours to code my site for me.
Wow.
And they were about a month into the job, and they sent me an email and they said, you know, we're on this page and, you know, we're trying to do this and it's not working right. And I went back to the documentation and I looked at it and I went, oh yeah, it's because it's wrong. Like the documentation is wrong at this particular point, the documentation is wrong. So I wrote back and I said, the documentation is wrong. And here I fixed it. Here's 2 new pages. And they wrote back and they said, oh, wow, thank you. Because we've been trying to figure this out like for a day. And I said, why didn't you just call me?
Yeah.
And they said, well, up until now, everything's been fine. So we just assumed it was us.
Oh, that's awesome.
And sometimes I look at that documentation and I go back and I think, who wrote this?
Yeah.
Like I was in some sort of like a
trance,
alternate universe trance or something. Like, it's like, wow, you were deep into this.
You're smart. Yeah, I love that.
Not smart, but just like, yeah, that's like pretty much the only thing that was in my brain for 3 months. Like,
I love that. And I was on your website, and it's gorgeous, and it seems very user friendly and very straightforward. So Thank you. If this is something that someone needs, Beeline Legal, I definitely would take a look. But so I am excited for what you're doing for your clients in your world. And I do feel like just because we have got to know each other a little bit through Empower Hour, I also really admire that you like take time and like you go to Bryant Park and you do those things, because I do that too. You know, like my schedule has been crazy this week because I've been in California for a month and I'm like just so busy. Tomorrow I have 0 calls and I am so excited for that. But saying that is that I admire that you get out and do things, because I'm going to get out and do things. Even if I'm going to work like at a restaurant or something, I'll still be out and I'm going to enjoy some of the city.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So that's my question for you is, how do you do the bi-coastal thing?
Oh, it is a little exhausting. One of the first Like, you don't know what you don't know, right? And when I started my company,
It's
I
that
said,
same theme, right? It's
yeah,
like-
yeah. When I first started my company, my roommate, who's also one of my very best friends from high school, it was like bi-coastal. We're going to be bi-coastal because we love LA and we love New York City. And that was my intention. But, life happened. And so I stayed in California happily. And then an opportunity came and I was like, I can move back to New York, but I have family, and that's it. That's the reason why I do it. And so when I first did this, Michele, I was trying to go back to California once a month. And I felt like I was losing my mind because I could never get settled. I could never settle down.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
I'm very attached to I don't have a lot of stuff, but my home is my home, and I need to be there eventually.
Yeah.
It's and okay. It's hard. I guess that's how you do it, is that it's hard, but it's worth it to you.
Yeah. But I decided that being bi-coastal it doesn't look the same for everyone. And so I changed up the cadence, and now my cadence is 6 to 8 weeks in New York and then 2 to 4 weeks in California. And that, yes, I was in California for a month, and I work from there, just like some people have no idea where I am on any given day.
Right. Yeah. And that's
unless they know my backgrounds. And so that made the month in California was amazing. I didn't feel like it was too fast. As a matter of fact, even my own grandmother, who is like, why do you live in New York? She even said, you've been here for a while. It was even a good enough time for her.
Go home.
Yeah, go home. And so, and my nephew, who's 6, was like, I said, Carmine, it's time for Auntie to go back to New York. And it's always a little bit of a sad conversation, and he said, you have been here for a long time. So I think I found my cadence, but it's that, Michele. And then it's also being really, really, really disciplined. And I am not, people say you're so disciplined. And I'm thinking to myself, I've got a lot of work to do there, because I could be even more disciplined. And, but yeah, so that's how I make it work. I'm still figuring it out. This is August. I moved last April of last year. So we'll see. Yeah. And I identified the times of year that I want to be there.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
So that was another thing that came out of it, was oh yeah, Mother's Day, I will always do in around that time. I'll always do that. And then always in July, a month for the summer, because that's when all of us come together.
Good.
And then so it was really nice to be able to find out those things, and it's made it so much nicer. And then I also travel with a couple things that I always have.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. It's shoot, left that thing back there. Yeah.
Like my water bottles. I love water bottles. I drink a lot of water, and so I travel with a couple of them. So, but anyway, thank you for asking. Okay. So it's a work in progress. Okay, so the last thing I want to ask you is more related to what you do, and I think it's important too, because I think there's a lot of hesitation, like you said, when you're working with a lawyer, and so kind of giving us some backstage info, I think is really helpful. And so when it comes to trademarks, well, first of all, what are your favorite and least favorite trademarks?
So my favorite trademark, can I give you 2?
Please.
Okay, my 2 favorite trademarks are Nest and Staples.
Can you tell us why? And this is the why is the
right. So to me, a truly great trademark hits somebody in their emotional center. It doesn't tell you what they make. It doesn't tell you what they do. It tells you what it's going to be like to work with you, right? And Nest does that, right? It doesn't talk about security cameras or thermostats or anything like that. It just says, you're home, relax, right? And that's what Nest says. And Staples is kind of genius because it has sort of that double meaning, like, yeah, we sell staples,
Right.
but what we really sell is what you need.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what a staple is something that you always need. Right. So if the world never uses paper or staples anymore, the brand will still work. Right. Because it will always work.
Right. They'll sell computers.
They'll sell, right. Or something that you and I have never even heard of, right? Because it hasn't it hasn't been invented yet. So that's why I love them, because they really take that, what's called suggestive. There are suggestive trademarks, and they take that, they hit that perfectly on the nail. And my least favorite, the one that I scorn, is Radio Shack, because it's the exact opposite of what I just said, right? Nobody, like, as the world changed,
no one wanted a radio.
No one wants a radio, and nobody really wants to shop at a shack, right? So, and I mean, I'm not saying that Radio Shack died because they had a crappy trademark, but it's a reflection of their inability to reimagine themselves.
Wow.
I mean, when you think about, as Radio Shack was dying, they kept trying all these, they tried to turn themselves like into an Apple store. They tried to turn themselves into all these different things, and they never had a clear view of what they were. And their trademark reflected that, right? We sell radios. I mean, right? They didn't really understand what they were, because that's not right. It's the same thing if Amazon had called itself Books Online, where would they be today?
Right.
Right. But that wasn't the vision, right? That was the first thing that we're going to do is this.
Yeah.
Right. But that's not all we're going to do.
Yeah.
And a trademark needs to come with you as you change and grow and pivot. And the only way it's going to do that, because the only thing that stays the same is that emotional core, right?
Yeah.
What it's like to work with this company. That's what stays the same. And that's,
I love that. And that's what I meant by because if I were to work with a trademark attorney, I would never have expected anyone to say what you just said. But I love that you come in with that knowledge too. That's marketing,
right? Well, and I have to that's a speech that I have, because about 85% of the time, the first thing I have to tell a new client is, you can't use that mark.
Wow.
Right. I mean, there were 500,000 applications filed at the trademark office last year. Right. So that's a lot. Right. And like pretty much every pronounceable configuration of letters has been taken. I mean, so a lot of times I have to say, you can't use that because somebody else has registered it. And then now that I've closed that door, I need to open another door for them.
Yeah.
And by explaining to them how they can find a different trademark, it takes the sting off of that. No, don't do that.
Yeah. Well, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. So people are in good hands when they're working with you. And then do you have if someone comes to you and they need other legal services, I'm sure you have your network of people and all of that.
Or I do. Yeah. I also do a lot of the same stuff that I used to do, and there's a special request button on my website where you can just put in a ticket and I'll quote you a flat fee for doing whatever legal work you want me to do. And if it's not something I do, then I reach out, because I do business law, I can write a contract. But if you need a litigator, for example, I don't go to court. I don't do that. Right. So, or, whatever else you need, at least then you've come to me and I can give you somebody else.
Yeah.
So there's always that too.
I always tell people, I don't like being referred to this, but I used to when I was in Pasadena. I was in Pasadena, based there for 6 years, and I was known as the Facebook girl for just a little bit. And then it's like the social media person. And so I always tell people, and this would go for you too, it's like, just associate me with anything social media and marketing, because at least they have a trusted resource.
Right.
And if it's not me, it's someone that I know that can do the work, that's trustworthy, that, has, yeah. And so
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And like, I
helps.
also do copyright work. I mean, it's not a big part of my practice. It's pretty
Right.
small. But like a lot of times when people come to me, what they're really looking for is a patent lawyer. And I don't do that. Right. But at least I can say, no, like what you're talking about, that's like a patent thing. So let me put you in touch with somebody who does that. And then at least I put them in touch with a patent lawyer who I know is a good lawyer. It's going to listen to them. Is going to take their time and explain things, isn't going to try to confuse them, so that's also. So again, like, I would much rather somebody come to me and not be a good fit for me and send them on their way to somebody else than have them, start looking for a lawyer on the internet.
Exactly. And that's the same with me. And it's like, if that doesn't show how much we care, even if we're not getting the work, then I don't know what does. And I love that. And that's small business. That's us being small business owners to the core.
Yeah.
We are the heart of our economy.
Or at least, I mean, we're the ones, I think, in many times pushing the envelope, figuring out a better way to do something.
Yes.
Not doing it the same way that, we've been doing it for the last 200 years.
That's so true. And that's a lot of us. That's why we actually go into business.
Yeah, I know.
That's what
like I said, there was no way like if I had proposed this from within my law firm, no way.
No way. Yeah.
No way.
I get that. Well, I also want to note that I think you are a huge inspiration for someone who is, I was 28 when I started my company. And
it's hard too. It's hard. I actually put together once this panel of founders, and it was very deliberately like somebody for each decade, right?
Yeah.
And what we discovered is there's no good time. It's like having a baby. There's no good time, right? Because for you, right? Yeah. So you probably didn't have a mortgage. Like you didn't have like all these things.
That's right.
But, I also had some savings because I'd been working for a long time. So I had some savings that allowed me to coast for a little while business picked up. So there's advantages and disadvantages. I mean, if you had failed at 28, you could pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and start all over again, right?
Exactly.
There's no dusting off. Like,
no.
It's like, that's it.
Right.
You call your son and tell him you're moving in.
Yeah.
It's like,
clean out the basement.
So it's hard. And, in your 30s, then you have a mortgage and you have kids or whatever, and in your 40s, your kids are off to college. I mean, there's never a good
time. Yeah. And then your energy levels, when I first started, I would stay up. I mean, the energy was different. The excitement was different. I get there's no perfect time, and
there's no perfect time. So you just have to do it.
You just have to do it. Yeah. You just have to do it. Well, this has been amazing. Will you be at Empower Hour today?
I will. I'm good. Right after this, I'm heading home, so you'll see my house in the background.
Okay.
Yeah, my apartment in the background instead of my office. But yeah,
I am going to have a snack, and then I will be there.
I'm going to pour myself a gin and tonic. But
there you go. I wonder how many people do that at Empower Hour.
Well, especially with a G&T, right? Because it looks like it's a glass of ice water.
Yeah. And we're on the East Coast, so it's 5 o'clock for us.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, my friend, this was so wonderful. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your experience. And I really, really appreciate you. And I look forward to just getting to know you more. And
Great. Excellent. Thank you for having me, Margaret.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.